So my name is Tony Barbagallo, VP of Product at Caringo, and I'm going to talk to you now about FileFly. I will do some past referencing. We've talked about all the internals of Swarm and object storage, and we launched this product back in the summer. And FileFly is essentially a bridge from primary file servers, NetApp or Windows file servers, to object storage. We've heard a number of ways that it's been described: thin provisioning for your primary storage, or Swarm being called a secondary repository for your primary storage. But they basically launched this product as a way to really bridge that gap from primary files and file servers to object storage. So from a use case standpoint, the access is transparent. Behind the scenes, we have integrated directly. Let me use Windows as an example. I'll talk about NetApp shortly, but let me using Windows file servers as an example. We have a Windows-based application. It's directly integrated with the NTFS file system, so now we're supporting CIFS and NFS, and there's essentially three use cases. We have what we call a hot use case, which would basically be a copy of all your files or whatever files you want, copy those files from primary storage to Swarm. So now you have a repository of all the files that exist on primary storage. So that could be a substitute to a typical backup application. You might want to run that on a policy every 24 hours, back up the most recent versions, or keep versions backed up into object storage. One use case. The most interesting use case, though, that we've seen is what we call the warm use case, which is migrate files according to any policy that you choose to set from primary storage to Swarm, leaving a pointer on primary storage. So from an end user standpoint, if you're on a Windows file system, you'll see the file icon that's somewhat grayed out, indicating that it's just a pointer. The data's not there. But when I double click, if I'm in an application and access that file, that information where that file was immediately comes back to the primary file server, and you access it just as it's never left the building, if you will.
And you can make that cutover permanent as well?
It can also, exactly, and that's the last end, the cold use case, which is make the cutover permanent. So a typical scenario might be if I'm the storage administrator, I might say, and we've talked to a number of them, and it's uncanny that they all say almost to a person that, they have a number of NetApp or they have Windows file servers, and it seems like after about 30 days, maybe 2 months at the most files are never accessed again. But they don't necessarily have the authority to remove those files from the primary storage. So this is a way for them to leverage the economics of what we've just been talking about, which is standard x86 hardware, whatever disk that you have, you can continue to scale that out, leverage those economics to store less frequently accessed data in Swarm object storage, while never changing what the users or any of the applications see on primary storage.
So do you ever see any type of scenario maybe like a branch cache type scenario? Meaning like at a remote office, putting in an appliance or something that might cache a certain amount of data that's hot?
Yep.
And then have that replicate back or however
In fact, that's a couple of the scenarios that we're currently in proof of concept with is a regional bank.
Right.
From a compliance standpoint, they want all their assets in corporate, and then they said, oh, by the way, we have 1,500 remote branch offices all running a Windows file server. They're filling up. We don't want to have to buy more file servers for them. How do we move that data off? So in that particular case, you'd run FileFly, the application, directly on those Windows file servers, and based on a policy that you set, data would be migrated off.
And you're going to be able to support NFS or SMB or whatever.
Yep.
So Macs, Windows, whatever might be. Okay.
Strangely, though, when I access those servers from the Mac, it doesn't show me that they're stubbed.
Yeah.
But it does work.
Yeah.
Tony, in the case of NetApp, where do you run the FileFly application?
In the case of NetApp, FileFly is still being run. You still need a Windows machine to run the FileFly application, but we use the NetApp's F-Policy server, which is an API that controls So
there's one Windows server where FileFly is actually operating in the cluster, let's say, and is actually migrating through the NetApp services the data off of the NetApp storage.
Correct. Correct. Although it's not a bottleneck that goes bump, bump.
Yeah, I know.
It's just
a
source
control
and
point,
destination
right?
with an IP address. Yep,
So
exactly.
all the files that you store on the Caringo swarm are actually files and metadata, so you can search those files. So you collect everything from
Absolutely.
all around your branch offices, and then you can search everything.
Right. In the case of this POC, they'll be using, and we'll talk about this later, but they'll be using our HTTP-based analysis tools to see, because you can store multiple of those remote offices, flat address space, everything's accessible. You might assign a bucket or domain to each remote office so that you have some level of hierarchy, but you can search across all of those, because at the end of the day, object storage is a flat address space.
So you can have your
Can
own
you
separate
search
instances and stuff like
Yep.
that.
also the content or just the metadata?
We only in our search capability, we only search the metadata. We do not break into the content at this point. So what we've done is, did I miss anything here? Again, because of the protection on Swarm, the other thing that you're gaining here is in significantly reduced backup windows.
That's good.
Right? Because we're already constantly protecting the data once it's on Swarm. So now your backup windows are reducing. So that's a pretty significant savings. And from an administrator standpoint, you can set a policy on any file attribute. So my last slide before I finish here, but you can see just this is the FileFly admin portal. So I can set it by owner, by last access. So I might have a policy that says every 24 hours I want to migrate all my zip and tar files off of my primary servers. Because typically what we tend to do as users is we'll double click to extract the files, all the files from our zip file, and then we'll leave the zip file. We won't delete the zip file, even though we're never going to use it again because we've got the files we need. So that would be an interesting policy that you might want to set. Another policy you might want to set that maybe you run weekly is every week I want to check for files that haven't been accessed in the last 30 days, and let's move those off. So really what we're doing is we're giving back that really expensive primary storage. We're giving that back to the organization. We're substituting it with much lower cost storage that's running on x86 hardware, which is commodity servers.
So do you guys promote the no backups solution as well? Like, you don't have to back this data up because
Correct. It is being backed up.
Right, 'cause
you
it's
could further
natively
disaster
backed.
recovery that data with feeds to a disaster recovery location, but the data itself is being backed up based on the policy you chose, either replications or erasure.
Okay.
And also, Tony, when you do run backups on the Windows server, you're not moving as much data. You're backing up
Yes.
live stuff. You're backing up live stuff, but mostly you're backing up the stubs.
Right.
So just slightly off topic because it's not your layer, I guess, but in something like Windows File System, is that open request to open a file that's been marked with a stub, is that a clean interface that is advertised by Windows that you write to?
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
absolutely correct.
So any application that's opening that file would also just be suspended whilst that retrieval process occurs?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So it's clean in terms of a...
Yes. And that's how
Application.
we're able to say we fully support CIFS and fully support SMB because we're integrated with NTFS.
Yep.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Can you also have an event-driven kind of snapshot with this? Like, so something happens in the system and they want a copy of all the files that changing in the last hour. So
You could do that. You could do a search and retrieve that, but it would be a search that you would say that exact scenario in a search. Last accessed or last changed in this amount of time. Show me all of them.
no, but so the process that runs when I need a copy, no? So instead of having a policy, an event that
Yes.
starts the procedure.
What you would do in this same admin console, there's a demigrate command, and that demigrate command can use the same attributes. So demigrate all files that have been accessed in the last hour and put them back where they need to be. So it's also a form of backup and recovery tool as well from an administrative standpoint.
Do you guys support compression, data compression, or deduplication on the back end at all?
We do not on the object side, no.
So when something like NetApp has snapshots of volumes or files or something like that, and they're asked to be migrated off. I mean, how does that all work?
Well, so again, you could choose what you want to migrate over, and typically we wouldn't migrate over a very active SQL database because there's too much back and forth. We typically wouldn't migrate over the snapshots either, although you could, but that doesn't make as much sense as the files that are.
So you're not playing like a snap vault target role or anything like that?
No, but we're not claiming to be a replacement for any of those tools. It's really meant to be. You've got a lot of data on these primary servers. You're paying a lot of money for that storage. We've got a more economical way for you to maintain the less active data.
I have a final question. You guys support SMR disk in the back? You know, it's shingled magnetic.
We could.
You could, but you don't necessarily.
Actually,
do it today.
We have investigated that. We have and this is off the topic for FileFly, but it's Russell did touch on it in his presentation where he talked about we actually write to the disk in a linear fashion.
Seem to be a natural.
We have a very custom designed, purpose designed format that we use on the disk that is very compatible with SMR style recording.
Okay, thanks.